Hey everybody, welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel. Right now I'm preparing a video to put out over the next 24 hours covering the first 70 to 100 years of Christian history from the resurrection of Jesus Christ through the formation of the Christian catechetical schools in the 5 major cities. But what I want to do today is just make a simple quick video defining a couple terms that are going to be important to us. And very important to us. The first one is anachronism. We see this rife in history today, and sociology, and pretty much every subject we look at. Politics, the list is endless. Anachronism takes ideas from the present and projects them onto the past. For example, in Christianity, we have certain doctrinal views today. There is a habit to look back on the writings of the earliest church fathers, the apostolic fathers, and even those apostles and writers who contributed to the Bible themselves, and apply our modern ideas to what it is they had to say. We have to be so careful not to do that, and it's hard. It's hard not to. The analogy would be looking back and studying World War II without going into it with an absolute hatred for the leaders of the Axis evil powers, Axis powers. You know, like your Hitler and your Mussolini and your Hideki Tojo. We know now what happened, so we look back on it with this lens, and everything we read about it is framed in that lens. We forget that at the time these individuals didn't know that. We have to try as hard as we can to look at the history of the past in the context, the second word, in which it took place. I can give you a good example. We think of Origen. Origen was one of the early church fathers. I like to think Origen, original, first, primary. He certainly wasn't the first to write. He wasn't the first Christian, but his works, he gave us over 2,000 works. And from time to time, he would write something that by today's doctrinal standards could be viewed as heretical or off the mark. And the internet is loaded with people who will take that one quote out of context, make a video about it, and end up confusing matters even further. You can't do that. I wouldn't want to be judged based on one sentence out of everything I've ever said. So we have to be careful in our society today, our diverse society that abides by critical theory and political correctness, to not view the history of the past with anachronism. We cannot project what we view today back then. The second is always look for context, right? Let me give you a brief story about Origen before we finish up this short video today. Now, Origen was born in the year 185. You don't start to see the ideas about Trinitarian orthodoxy hit pen and paper until the late 200s, early 300s AD. Well, Origen had some ideas on it. He brought them over from, Platonic philosophy, which is what he studied and where he came from. And he wrote ideas about it, but it wasn't settled at the time. I mean, he had this idea about, 3 hypostasis, the Father, Son, and Spirit. But he had this idea that the Son might be subservient to the Father. Now, we know the Trinity today. So we look back on his works and say, oh my gosh, this man was a Sabellian. He was an adoptionist. He was this. He was that. No, he was writing these things 100 years before this issue became a major issue that would ultimately be, the beginnings of it would be discussed in an attempt to resolve it at the First Council of Nicaea, although it didn't quite make it. So, I want you to think about those terms. Think about your own life, right? Because we're going to get into some deep stuff now that we have the pre- and post-Nicene fathers to study from. Anachronism and context. I look forward to talking to you soon. Check me out across the other platforms today to learn more about this day in church history and what's coming up on the next video over on our main channel at YouTube. God bless you. May your work today bear fruit. Thanks.